What's up, guys? Most people are obsessed with media buying and all the crazy media buying strategies that are out there. Today, I'm going to break down exactly how and what exact media buying strategies we use in-house to scale brands to consistent $30,000 days in revenue. Okay, so super simple, right? Like I'm a fan when it comes to media buying. I'm a fan of saying, like easy scales, fancy fails, and so therefore I'm going to break down 2 different types of campaigns that you're going to run regarding the 2 different strategies that we have in order to obviously test creators properly. Okay, so the first one is going to be the hook test, obviously the hook testing campaign, and I'm going to break down what it is, why we do it, and what the campaign setup for that looks like. And then the second one is just the creative testing campaign, and obviously how you can treat it as the scaling campaign at the same time, how you can properly serve scale up, especially now in Q4. So let's get right into it. So first of all, we have the hook test campaign. And so when it comes to the hook test campaign, the whole point of that is for us isolating the most important variable in every single ad, which is either the headline on an image ad or the actual text hook or content hook on a video ad. And so the idea is what we do is basically you put them on image ads that just have a white background and just black text in the middle. So it looks like literally just a white picture with nothing else but text in the middle on it. Obviously, we don't want to have the best. We're not expecting the best CPMs from that because those are not the ads that, obviously retain the people on the platform and all that kind of stuff. So Facebook will likely punish you with higher CPMs, but that's not the issue anyways, because what we are actually looking for is we're looking for the best click-through rates, the best CTRs, and those are going to be the ones that we then transition to the actual creative test. But now in this video, we're talking about not the copywriting, but more about the actual campaign setup, about how you're going to approach this test. So first of all, I want to mention obviously that we want to force a little bit of spend on every single one of these hooks, okay? So every single one of them, and I usually start with a really high volume. The idea is that you kind of shotgun approach this here. This is the volume test. This is the throwing hooks that I want, seeing what sticks, so that you don't have to do that anymore in the creative test. That's kind of the idea. So what that looks like is basically you go ahead and you test 30 different hooks. That's usually what I like to start with. Basically what you do is you have 10 ad sets, you put in 3 hooks in each ad set, launch them at like $20 each, and then turn each hook individually off after like $2 to $3. Now, the idea of why we give every single ad set $20 of budget, even though we're not going to spend it out, is 2 things. First of all, the traffic quality, and second of all, we want to spend them, we want to get spend on them very quickly. So what happens usually is if you actually put in like $6, $5, $4, sometimes $2 of budget and ad set in an ABO, is the traffic quality will be super, super terrible. And the whole metrics, the entire metric overall, all the way through from the click-through rate to the CPM, everything will be super ineffective and not really accurate of what it's actually going to be when you transition the hooks into the actual creative test. Therefore, you can't actually treat that data, treat the numbers that you buy from that actually seriously. And therefore, you want to give them like at least a $20 budget minimum. Okay. Once again, we're not expecting sales from this campaign. We're not expecting to be profitable. The only thing we're looking for is after turning each hook off after like $2 to $3 is the best click-through rates. And so KPI is at least a 7%. Second reason, obviously, like I said before, why we give them a $20 budget is that we want to have spend quickly. So we don't want to waste time with the hook test. This is something which is just going to increase hit rates, but we also don't want to, spend days and days, giving them multiple days of spend. That's complete bullshit. I'm a fan of obviously giving them like maybe a couple hours. In order to achieve that, you have to obviously constantly sit in the ad account and turn them off individually after they hit like $2 to $3 each. Okay, so this is how you approach the hook test. Now, after this, that's pretty much done with ABOs. Now, I know I used to be a really big fan of, testing actual creatives as well with an ABO, but very recently it's just been, kind of shifting towards a CBO more and more and more, but not a complete, crazy CBO structure where I give Facebook literally all the freedom and all the variety that you have. What I like to actually do is I like to set up CBOs with minimum spending budgets. And so for these minimum spending budgets, it's going to act like an ABO. And the cool thing is the CBO itself learns more. And if you were to like run a CBO immediately with kind of letting them, giving all the freedom to Facebook and then essentially letting Facebook spend on every single one of these ads, or versus having minimum spend budgets, is actually not going to spend out even after the minimum spend is over and starts acting like a normal CBO. What's going to happen is super interesting. These things usually still spend very differently compared to if you were to have like give all the freedom immediately to Facebook. And so this is why I like to always force a little bit of spend. You can also test with ABO, by the way. I'm not opposed to that. The only problem is it's going to make your creative test very expensive, because I'm a friend of a lot of volume, and the more volume you have inside of your creative test, the more money you're going to spend on this creative test. Okay, so it gets significantly more expensive for every single ad set that you do add in an ABO. And obviously, therefore, we do want to kind of limit the amount of creatives. We want to kind of do quality over quantity when it comes to actual creatives. After that's kind of why we've done the hook test in the first place. And we want to have a minimum spend, but after that, scale as a CBO. And so the cool thing is, after this is over, after you have, the winners in here, you're just going to start isolating, meaning turning off the ads that are not working, turning off the ad sets that are not working, but the ones that are just going to start intraday surf scaling. And so how does surf scaling really work and look like on Facebook? So basically, ad account time zone 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. is where we specifically want to sit in the ad account around every hour to every 2 hours. Or you can obviously outsource this to your media buyer as well, because this is going to be super effective and you're going to outsource things very quickly, even if you're not doing it yet. Okay, so how this is going to look like is at 2 p.m. you'll look at every single campaign and ad set, if it's an ABO, that is running at the moment. So what's going to basically happen is essentially you'll look at all the CBOs, all the ABOs that you run, and so you look at the ROAS. That's the only metric you look at. Now, if the ROAS is above 3, you're going to double the budget. Then you look into it at 4 p.m., right? At 4 p.m., 2 hours later, again, if the ROAS is still on that same campaign, over 3 on every single one of them, you're going to double the budget. You're going to double the budget. And you do this every 2 hours until 8 p.m.s. And you can literally double the budgets 4 or 5 times a day. Unbelievably powerful strategy. And it actually does work, especially now in Q4. Now, the cool thing is, if the ROAS is above 5, you can 10x the budget. Yes, you've heard correctly. 10x it. You can take a budget, which is at $100 a day, and if the ROAS is above 5 at 2 p.m., you can 10x the budget to $1,000 a day. And if the ROAS is still above 5, you can still go ahead and 10x it again. You can go to 10K super quickly. Now, obviously, in reality, it's going to not look like that, because you're going to, one of the ads is going to break. Most of the ads are going to break. But the only thing you do then is you scale back. You scale back to where it was profitable. So basically do it divided by 10 in the next 2 hours. Obviously, surf scaling is also down, right? Super important to keep in mind. And then at 8 p.m., you stop and you don't scale back. This is the important part. You actually don't touch the budgets. You just leave it like they are and just literally don't scale back, don't touch them. Now, you start today with the high budgets again, next day. And so this is why this is one of the most powerful strategies, because if you compare it to how people surf scale on TikTok, well, every 3 sales that they get, usually they just double the budgets, which is super interesting, because on TikTok, first of all, your creatives die every single day. And on TikTok ads, what also tends to happen is you scale back before starting the next day. You just start with more ad sets. On Facebook, it works completely differently. Surf scaling on Facebook is actually basically starting the next day with the super high budgets and extremely quickly iterating on the ads that broke, basically, because you're going to find out very quickly where your ads break when you surf scale. And so all you got to do then is fix those metrics. And that's the interesting part, because when you figure out, let's say we have in this ad set, we have a creative, which is the top spender, and at $500 a day in budget, it just breaks, ROAS breaks. But the cool thing is, you can't just basically, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that I'm not a fan of saying, okay, my ad just broke, or my ad just, ROAS just died, because there's always a reason for the ROAS becoming bad. And so you look at, is it either the CPC? Is it the conversion rate? Is it both? If it's both, which one is worse? You look at the weakest metric, and let's say it's the CPC. Then you go deeper into the CPC. Is it the CPM? Is it the CTR? If it's the CTR, is it my hook rate? Is it my pitch rate? Is it anything in between? And you can identify in the entire ad what was the weakest metric. And the cool thing is, if you fix the weakest metric, let's say the hook rate, you get it from 25% to 50, for example, what's going to happen is the ad is going to hold a lot more spend the next day. And you can literally pump them into the same exact CBOs and treat them again like a completely new campaign. And the cool thing is, you're going to be able to, without scaling back, even when uploading new ads into it, surf scale even further. And this is why the minimum spend is also so important, because otherwise the creatives oftentimes tend to not get any spend. So this is pretty much how we media buy. If you want to, you can send this video to your media buyer to quickly onboard him. I want to say thank you so much for giving me your most important asset, which is your attention. Thanks for watching. See you next time. I wish you a beautiful day.